Okay, hello, good evening, and welcome to the Facility Committee meeting on Tuesday, November 12th. We have Ms. Solomon as an excused absence, and we have Mr. Thornton joining us via Zoom. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Morris for administrative remarks.
Thank you and good evening. On tonight's agenda, we do have 4 action items, one being a ratification, as well as an informational item. We do have some presenter here for item number 4.01 and 4.02. I'll introduce them when we get to those. And then I would like to ask for consideration of tabling item 4.03, the district-wide roofing replacement and restoration plan, for a contingent date to bring that back before you in January facilities meeting.
I guess procedurally, do I need to get a nod from everyone to table? Just question. He asked for consideration. I just wanted to know if we need to get a nod from everyone. Okay, so we'll be tabling 4.3. Okay, with that, do we have any public comment? With that, review of the minutes? Look okay?
Yes.
Looks okay. So with that, we'll move to our agenda items. The first one on the agenda is item 4.01, Ithan Elementary Plan Con Part D and E.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce Damian Spar and Walt Tack, I always say Task, from Site Logic, who is our construction management firm that we have hired for Ithan Elementary School. So both Damian and Walt will be speaking on behalf of 4.01 and 4.02. So.
Thank you. It's nice to be here again. I'm Damian Spar, and we will have a short presentation for both of these items that we'll put up on the screen. And the first item on the agenda is the Act 34 hearing, board approval of Plan Con D and E. And we'll take a moment to reacquaint everyone with what that is and why we have to do it. For the board, that's found in the actual forms of D and E, found in the administration section of board documents for your reference. And what we're doing tonight, and if we can get to, we'll get to the schedule slide number 3. What we're doing tonight is looking at several different things. This first part, and this is November board meeting, the business meeting that's upcoming, is to approve Act 34 Plan D and E. And that procedural step is born out of when Plan Con was funding projects. And the tools that the Pennsylvania Department of Education used were Plan Con forms, planning and construction forms. And there were several of them, A through Plan Con JK. K is the final one. Plan Con D and E is the drawings and information about the building, which is D, and then all the costs related to the building as estimated that have gone into your Act 34 information. The procedural step that we're taking here is not something that's necessarily required by PDE anymore, but it's a step that school districts have taken, solicitors have recommended for the board to approve the information that really built up the Act 34 booklet and was used in the Act 34 hearing. So we'll review that briefly tonight, but this procedural action is for the board to say at its business meeting, we approve that this is submitted to PDE as a matter of form. The next slide shows our schedule update, and I'd like to hit a couple of things. The top part, about a little past a third of the way down, you'll see things have been ongoing all the way through our Act 34 advertisement and hearing. We are in the construction document phase that goes to the end of the year. That hearing was on October 16th. If you recall, the Act 34 hearing had a period of 30 days after it for comments that were invited by the public. To our understanding right now, there have been no comments received, and there were none taken at the hearing itself. We have for November 19th at your business meeting to approve this PlanCon D&E form as a matter of procedure. And then we start to look out all the way to January to a potential release for bid with a bidding period to go from February 3rd to March 5th, looking at a potentially late March review, and then potentially awarding at that time and executing contracts over the next month, recording land development in May, obtaining permits in early June, and really starting there with construction on site beginning in early July. And so what that does is it gets us to a September 2027 use of the building.
Actually, will be
Did I say that wrong?
starting the class in the new building over spring break.
We will. That's true. We will be
I think
able
we
to start
discussed that
classes
at
earlier.
the last meeting.
Thank you, Walt. So just as a matter of course for this particular schedule, we are working very closely with the district's land development solicitor and the civil engineer and all of the other consultants related to that to make sure that we're compressing that, working closely with the township to be able to meet that schedule. And a whole lot of pieces come together. And the thing that we are, as a group, not only the administrators that have been working with SiteLogic itself, and even Breslin, is making sure that the civil engineer is putting forth all the effort they need to in the time frame to satisfy the township so that when we turn things in, they're found to be complete, they can be acted upon, and we can make this smooth. We have actually taken ourselves to, we're probably looking at meeting twice a week now to keep the civil engineer on task. And we will have more about what that schedule looks like as it starts to really gel together. And again, with a lot of assistance from the land development attorney. Dr. Batchelor, do you have anything that maybe I missed that you would want to add to that? Okay, thank you, sir.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Are you in contact, is the township aware of this timeline as well?
Yes, we are in touch with the township, and I'm going to look back at Mr. Dolan a little bit, because I think he's been doing a lot of that, in touch with the township with the understanding of what we're trying to do and when we're trying to get out to bid. And our land development attorney, Mr. Falcone, is also deeply involved in that, in communicating with the township. I haven't spoken out of turn there at all, have I?
I would just imagine keeping constant, I mean, with groundbreaking, like when we get to that piece, having everything, it's pretty tight timing, right? Once we get the bill.
It's tight, and we don't
Yeah.
want to slip up.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we will bring more of that as that develops, and that's going to develop a lot over the next couple of weeks. So Act 34 of 1973, we've reviewed several times, and this law back then was intended to place boundaries on school construction and expenditures. It was applicable to new construction and significant significant additions. Over 20% of the existing building, even when we don't have PlanCon reimbursement. So even though we don't get money from the state anymore to build our schools, we have to go through this because we're proving to the state that we're being fiscally responsible. And I will say, as the professional here watching Radnor conduct its business, it's being extraordinarily fiscally responsible to get the programs that it needs. And that's really based on the rated pupil capacity of the school according to PDE guidelines, what PDE provides as standards and allows for construction for each student in that capacity, and then a total amount that really focuses on the building as if to say, the building really can only cost X dollars. And we've gone through all that in our Act 34 hearing, and that standard is being met right now with our estimate of cost. So we've held the public hearing, and as you'll see in the next slide, that hearing was on the 16th, and we are at the point where we have tonight our presentation to Facilities Committee for the form of PlanCon D&E as a final submission related to Act 34, and then the approval of that on the 19th at consideration. Are there any questions about the PlanCon D&E information?
Any questions? Mr. Thornton? Don't hear him chiming in, so there are
Yeah,
none.
no specific questions. It seems pretty much as part of the process as I'm hearing it.
That's correct. Absolutely correct.
So are you ready to move on? Okay, we're on to the next agenda item, 4.02, temporary HVAC for Ithan Elementary.
So as a part of preparing the school for construction, and because the construction of the new building itself will disrupt the existing geothermal well fields, we are putting in a temporary heating, ventilating, air conditioning plant to be run while the school is being constructed, because the existing Ithan will not be able to use those geothermal wells. If you look at the diagram above, you'll see where the existing Ithan is and where we are looking to put that temporary plant. That temporary plant consists of, and I'm going to ask Mr. Tack to make sure that I don't wander here, it consists of boilers and chiller and I think cooling tower.
Can we go over what it consists
Oh,
of?
air-cooled chiller, thank you. That's why I asked. They get connected to the existing mechanical room so that while that temporary plant is running, it's really feeding the mechanical room in place of the geothermal well system. This has been something that's been placed in our budget. I will tell you that we had a budget of about $800,000 or so earlier on.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and I'll-
760.
yeah, I'll get to that in a little bit here, so just to make sure that you understand what those numbers are. So the plant, as we look at the next slide, I've kind of explained that the existing well field will be decommissioned prior to construction. You can see here what the scope of work is with the sand filter, the cooling tower, relocation of the boilers, the cold water piping between the cooling tower and the boilers, hot water piping between the boilers and existing pumps to the heat pump system, and fencing and gate to surround that and safe it off. The cooling towers and the concrete pad are not included in this particular bid package. They're being procured elsewhere. Temporary heating has always been a part of the project cost because we always knew that this was going to be an issue. So we're doing things to start the construction that are within our budgeted line items. And right now, what we're asking for the board to allow us to do is publicly bid that temporary heating plant. I have had lots of conversations with Mr. Morris about getting as much competition as possible for this, and we are looking at using a cooperative purchase bid as well. If we get two different procurement methods trying to find the best price for this and really get the district the best value, one of those, if you take public bids and you choose to use the cooperative purchase, we'll reject the public bids and we'll recommend approval of the cooperative purchase. If we want to take the public bids, we don't have to take any action to just accept those bids and not do anything with the cooperative purchase proposal. The schedule for this is to release bids on the 19th of this month, receive bids just before Christmas on the 20th, and then award contracts in January, on the 28th at the board meeting scheduled for January. We would issue notices to proceed in February, and we have scheduled so that we can start that system up over the summertime. So as you can see, that kind of dovetails right in with the getting the equipment here, being able to set it up in an area that's not disruptive to the educational process, and starting it up when the kids aren't in school, making sure that it works. So I don't usually do this. I don't usually say that there's a design development estimate of 760 and a construction document estimate that's less. I'm going to tell you that my expectation is, and I want to go back through ours, so I'll ask for a little forgiveness. I want to make sure that we don't have some of the costs that belonged with that 450 inadvertently in our building costs. So at design development, we were at 760. We got more information, and I'm going to make sure that we transmit information back through the administration so that if we expect that there was money in the building part of the estimate that should have been in here, and that number should have been a little bit higher toward the 760, that we'll let you know. But we understand approximately what this is going to cost. The point that I'm making is if we have enough money in the budget to do it. The question is, did we have it in the building part, or did we have it in the specific part for the central plant? So we'll review that with Mr. Morris, and we'll make sure that the administration can let the board know what our expectations are. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to that? Because I thought about that a lot before I got into that.
So I just wanted to add some context to the actual what temporary HVAC means, right? Like, so, again, we have to disrupt the geothermal field, which means the heat pumps in the building will have no way of extracting or rejecting heat, which we do into the ground. So we have to add a boiler in order to heat the water up so that the heat pumps have a way of extracting that heat to put it into the building. And then the cooling towers in the summertime so the heat pumps can then reject heat to that water, and it can then be cooled by the cooling towers. So this is a temporary system. So we want to make sure that we're not looking for the Cadillac of systems here. This is temporary. It's something that does get ripped out 2 years from now when the building's completed. There are some components that will retain, that will still have value, such as a filtration system, a VFD drive, some of the pumps, and we'll try to salvage as much as we can from it, but it's really just a lot of piping and a lot of electrical and things like that. So the cooling towers and the boiler that we are using are salvaged, right, or relocated. So we're kind of thinking out of the box of how we get stuff that we're not purchasing and then kind of dismantling in 2 years. So there's some value to that as well. So I just want to make sure everybody understood what that meant.
Yeah, I think your creativity and working with site logic, I think the creativity is great. I mean, part of this is, what we're doing with an old boiler from our high school, and what you've also been able to, I know you should say salvage, but finding cooling towers other places for us. So thank you for that creativity, and knowing this project is coming up. The only question I have that I'm not sure I necessarily need an answer for now, but just I'm always pessimistic about schedules, and I appreciate everywhere where Site Logic has been in pushing on the schedule. But as we go out to bid for this piece, and then we're looking to the board to award that bid at our January meeting, if anything should change in our schedule between now and January, or something should change in our schedule in February, we all lived through soil pieces of another project that surprised us. If there are changes, what happens to this? We're bidding something, and then something could change the schedule. Have we thought about, you don't need to necessarily answer that now, you can come back to me, but how do we react to that once we move forward with one piece in bids, but then something else changes, in January or February?
Absolutely, and I'll have to revert to Site Logic just because they're the one creating the specifications and the front ends, right? Like, so we do have to make sure and monitor. So we have some time in the schedule.
And that's my thought, I guess.
Yeah, to the end of January.
Does some of that go into our specifications, I guess, is the questions when we go out to bid?
There's a couple of things. First of all, we're talking about releasing for bid in early February, so we'll be several more months down the road in the approval process, have a much better handle on exactly how things are going. There's also a month of bidding, 1 month bidding period. So by the time we receive bids, we're going to be into March.
And we're talking about the building.
Yeah, for the
Not-
building,
not
not,
this
yeah,
part.
yeah. So we'll have a pretty good idea where things stand before we receive bids. If during that bid period, we do find that things are looking like they may be pushed back, we always have the ability to adjust the contract documents with an addendum. We also then have, you have 60 days from when, typically you have 60 days after you receive bids to sign the contracts, execute contracts with contractors. And we typically can even go and ask contractors to hold them for additional time if need be. So we've got a little bit of flexibility there. We can work with that typically.
I just want to make sure we're thinking about with the bid for this cooling project, that if anything else should change after that, that we're not, that we have flexibility with that work also, is all I'm
So,
saying.
so it's important to understand that what we're putting in here is not meant to last just long enough, but it's gonna have lifespan in it to last as long as we need it to, and then a good bit more. So while this is kind of the first commitment that we make to the building, when you get into the schedule for bidding the building itself, there are several places where you have the ability to affect looking at what those permits are and when we're going to actually start work. It's not only when we release for bid, and we want to be thoughtful about that. We've always said we want to release for bid to get bids at a good time, et cetera. So we have that, but I revert to what I've said about Bellefonte Elementary School as an example. When you're building a big, brand-new building like this, it generates a lot of interest because this is the cleanest construction that contractors can bid. And they like that a lot more than cut-up little renovation projects and things like that. So we will always have that going for us. Not only do we have the decision as to when we bid, but as Walt alluded to, when we go out for bid, minimally, you're going to say, we can hold the bids for 60 days. I have had a lot of experience with holding 90 without a problem. And on a couple exceptions, we've held because of permits to 120. Now, you can really only do that if you have a very long project. And we do have a long project that spans the time that would allow that. So we have all of those in our favor. In addition to that, we could extend the bid period by as much as a month if we needed to. And then we have the addenda that we can make sure that contractors know what those changes look like. So the schedule's incorporated, and when the bids come in or accepted, you own that schedule change. So there are several points where we have control, and we will exercise those as we need to.
And that's a good point. So Damien, when we approve this to go out to bid, next week, should it be approved, and the bids are due to be received December 20th. We could put an addendum out to extend the time the bidders have by a month, maybe 2 months. We could change the date that the bids are due to us.
For this, we could, although we have to be careful with the couple of things that we're procuring here in terms of lead time to make sure that we're getting those in a timely manner.
Any questions? I just had one. So I appreciate the creativity on the cooling towers and the boiler. When we purchase this, is there any opportunity to repurpose or sell it resale for whatever we're purchasing for the interim?
I would say that there's an opportunity. How much you'll get, depends on how hard it's used and how it holds up in its condition where it's, being used then. But there are marketplaces for that, and you will have that opportunity to take a look at it. And frankly, there's always a need. So it's just a matter of finding the right buyer that does need it and making sure that not only the district gets a fair price and is doing the right thing fiduciarily here, but that it's a good value both ways, so nobody can come back and say, you sold me a lemon boiler. We're not expecting that. But absolutely, you could do that. We would want to evaluate that toward the end of its use, which will be the end of the project, toward the end of the project.
Is that it?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate Ms. Duffy's question there, or emphasize that it's a sizable expense, and if there's something that we can do to, at the end, to recoup any of this, I think that would be good. So I just kind of want to underline that point.
Well, when you give me a little bit more time to think, I always come up with something interesting. So here's another proposal for you. We could, as a matter of course for our bidding purposes, say to the mechanical contractor, you may take this equipment and reuse it, and we can get an alternate bid that says, school district, we're gonna give you a credit of X dollars if we take this and it becomes the property of the mechanical contractor and they get to deal with it. While we're doing all that, we can examine the market and see if there's a market that would get us more money. But there's a couple of ways to go at that, and we'll all investigate the potential for an alternate to say, here, you can keep the equipment from the plant, tell us what the credit is as an alternate, and we can choose to accept that at bid time.
But there's also value, so just kind of go back to what a previous statement. There is some value to us as well as a district for some of these components, right? So the boiler, we'd have to see, maybe there's another use in the district, right? And we can move it. But the pumps, the heat exchanger, the PEP filtration, the building automation controls that go into this, a lot of those components will have a value to us, and we'll want to retain those, building automation being number one. All of those components can go on the shelf and be used in other parts of the district as we upgrade our building automation system. So there will be some components that have value to us, and we'll see how we can, where they fit and how we can reuse them as well, so.
Great. Okay, I think we're good, right?
Thank you.
Moving on. Well, we are tabling 403, district-wide roofing replacement, and we are on our last item tonight, 404, upcoming capital improvement projects. Oh, not the last one, sorry, I spoke too soon, no. Second to last. 404, upcoming capital improvement projects.
All right, thank you. So just want to run through a couple upcoming capital improvement projects. So this is not meant to be a presentation of sorts. We do plan to do a full presentation at the December 10th board meeting for both of these projects. We'll have, you know, all of the details about the projects and all of the information that goes along with it. There is, in your administrative section, we already have the HVAC and the building automation proposals and documents in there for you to review ahead of time. So we're just going to run through tonight a little bit about those upcoming projects. So, all right. If I can get this to move. All right. So the first project we plan to present in December is the high school energy sustainability and indoor air quality project. So just a little timeline, kind of go back how we got here today. Pennsylvania opened up the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Grant to school districts to allow them to apply for upgrades to buildings, and that could range from HVAC to windows to insulation to roofs to a whole lot of different items. But we saw an opportunity to take advantage of that and put together a pretty extensive energy sustainability and indoor air quality project that we did submit for in May of 2024. So that project total at the time was estimated, and we did get three prices on that, was estimated at $5,852,158. That was, again, estimated. Our grant submission was for $4,389,118. So the grant itself was awarding projects up to $5 million. So we tried to take advantage of the full amount. The board did approve a resolution in May of this year to secure or contribute 25% of matching funds. So that's kind of how we came up with the 4.3 or 4.4 for the grant submission. Originally, we kind of thought, they alluded to maybe an August approval, then we got clarification that September 17th date for grant award. During that meeting, they tabled it. They couldn't come to some type of agreement on grant applications or submissions and awards, so they delayed it until November. October 22nd? Yeah, I'm trying to read the slides from here. I'll look over here. My glasses aren't that good. But anyway, so yeah, September 17th was the original date. They postponed it till October 22nd, where we found out we were getting $2.5 million, or 44% of the total project cost. So not exactly what we asked for, but a huge win. And actually, next week at the board meeting, we're going to announce the grant publicly. So this is kind of like cat out of the bag kind of deal. But again, so we're going to ask for board approval December 10th, and then hopefully, because of timelines, prepare documents that we could possibly start to deliver the purchase orders to the contract holder on December 11th, because of timing, and again, lead times with equipment and things like that. We want to try to get things finalized. So one thing to keep in mind too with these large projects, especially like this in the building automation, there's about a 45 to 60 day delay from the time we issue them a purchase order until we actually start to see any physical work getting done. So that's a minimum of 45 to 60 day. There's still some engineering that needs to be done. There's equipment that needs to be ordered and things like that. So to get just a little bit more detail about the project, today our total, so we did update with the formal price. Again, the three were estimated costs or proposals. We now have a formal cost of $5,747,739, which is lower than our estimate. So that's kind of a win as well. Again, grant funding's 2.5 for a total out-of-project cost of just shy of $3.2 million. So some of the things we took when considering this grant is we took a look at our 5 and 10 year plan, and basically what we're doing is we're accelerating a large portion of our 5 and 10 year plan for this, which opens up a lot of opportunities for us to do some better things instead of just equipment replacement in kind. So things like boilers, chillers, pumps, variable frequency drives, rooftop units, ductwork repairs, and some building automation pieces. So we're basically accelerating $3.2 million of our capital plan. And some of the items that we added to the project versus the accelerated, in order to bring this together as a full sustainability, energy, and indoor air quality program, we did add removal of 8,000-gallon oil tank that we have there. So we're getting rid of the fuel oil and the fossil fuels that we have with the high-efficiency condensing gas boilers. We added thermal ice storage. We did realize there's a little bit more ductwork and insulation repairs needed. We changed the chiller selection to maximize efficiency from what we had in our 5 and 10 year capital plan. We added additional heat exchangers for heat recovery, some ultraviolet lighting, expansion tanks, glycol feeder, and then originally part of our 5 and 10 year plan was not domestic hot water production, but in December you'll see we're doing some pretty cool stuff with that. So, and then we also designed a project to take care of or to take advantage of some rebates and savings. So PECO has some energy incentive rebates, so our chiller will qualify for that. We're expecting a large rebate from PECO on the chiller. So that's in the 5-digit range. There are IRS tax credits that we're going to try to take advantage of. That's still kind of an unknown at this point, but an assumed tax credit. And not that we pay taxes, but the IRS, we actually get the check rather than a tax incentive. So, and then the overall lowering of our operating costs, we tried to maximize that, and then lower maintenance costs. So, and we can get really into the weeds in December. I did bring some information on energy savings. I know that that was a question. So I brought some information, but again, we can get into the weeds on December 10th. And then the second project that we're going to be bringing to you for presentation is updating our building automation system. So this is always part of our 5 and 10 year capital plan. We expected to start this project, the building automation upgrade, in this school year. We got a proposal back in the spring and we were carrying a budgetary price of $1,250,000, so $1.2 million in our capital plan. That project has now gone up to 1.3 or 1,373,000 due to the added stuff that we put into the boiler room. So there's some added controls and sensors and things of that nature. So when we put the 1.2 together, it did not include the grant submission and that project. So this kind of went before we even submitted for the grant. So with that HVAC project, and you'll see how they all kind of tie in together, we have a not to exceed price of 1.3. There's still some variable costs in there. So we do have the potential to bring that cost down. So that's, we'll talk a little bit more about that in December. But the project does include replacing of all of our obsolete controls and sensors in the majority of the building at the high school. Some of the building automation was updated during the accessibility and wellness, and we're going to bring that in and integrate that. We're not going to rip that out and throw it away. We're going to actually integrate that into a kind of like a all-in-one package there. So we're only manipulating one system rather than two. We're going to do integration of new controller from the accessibility and wellness. Includes programming and graphics, energy efficiency schemes, energy tracking and monitor, trending, alarming, and troubleshooting. So it's pretty extensive. So that's just kind of an overview. Again, the documents are in the administrative content, so you can look at both the building automation and the HVAC proposals. And I'd be happy to answer any questions now or between now and December 10th that you might have with regards to those two projects.
Any questions?
No, because I know how diligent you are about trying to get the costs down and without sacrificing quality. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And, I guess that's really to Mr. Pauling, we're just accelerating the expenditure, taking advantage of a great grant, but so assuming we're comfortable with the capital expenditures being front-loaded.
Yeah, so to jump the gun a little bit for the Finance Committee meeting, we'll talk a little bit about where our performance was for the 23-24 fiscal year. And we will have some surplus funds out of that year that we're looking to allocate specifically to cover the difference for the high school project from what we have as the total cost versus what we got in the grant. So we have an amount in there that will cover that. And then we still have the remaining funds for the other capital projects, including the building automation, which was already built into that. So kind of a prelude to the Finance Committee meeting in an hour or so. Yep.
Great. So we have the funds, and we're accelerating our sustainability goals to be a little earlier.
Yes.
Right.
So,
Win-win.
yeah, there's quite a few of them. It's pretty exciting stuff. And one of the big questions is, with the energy efficiency and reduction of energy for the high school, right, which is one of our biggest consumers of resources. This past summer, we did do phase 1 roofing. Right, so we will recognize a energy savings with that roofing. So Tremco, who was awarded the phase 1, is putting together, as we speak, the energy savings analysis for just what that roof looks like, right? And then we'll be putting together a total pack energy efficiency and return on investment presentation for you as well.
Great.
The contract is awarded, the contract winner will go ahead and start that process. That's about 6 or 8 weeks of intense work to put together those energy efficiency numbers and return on investment. We're currently working with PICO, so I have a standing every Friday meeting with PICO. So we're going over energy usage, our kilowatts, what we're committed to, all the tariffs and everything like that. We're working with their incentive people for the rebates. So not in December, but we do plan to come to you and show you what, everything that you've approved and everything that is done to better our buildings, what that really means. And
Terrific.
so.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, we are on to new business. Wait, no, wait, oh, sorry, I'm sorry, you're right. Item 405, ratification of high school accessibility and wellness project change order,
Right.
which
So,
is a credit.
yep. So this is a credit from the accessibility and wellness project. So I do have Mr. Dolan here, who, if you have any questions, can speak of it. But yeah, it's not often we get a credit, but here it is. So if you have any questions, I can bring Bill up, or
I'm just excited that it's a credit, so, yeah, we'll take it. It's for 17,275, correct?
yes, 17,275.
Terrific.
And it's, my understanding is this one's a ratification, correct? Is it
Yes, this is a ratification.
Yeah. So, yeah, so we don't need to
Okay.
discuss. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so now we are, number 5, new business. Any new business? Public comment? Okay, with that, meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. See folks at 7.